In this video, I want to share some of the things that I see every single broke freelancer doing. And these are things that pretty much every single broke freelancer does. These are the things that hurt the freelance community as a whole. And these are things that if you are doing them, you need to stop because it's hurting you as well. And I know this because in our own community of over 9,000 freelancers, we see the same exact thing. So if you're struggling, I would encourage you to watch this entire video because if you are doing any of these things, you need to stop, you need to readjust, and it's going to help you go from broke to maybe not a six-figure creative, but hey, let's start with five-figure creative. So if you're still watching right now, I'm going to assume that you're a broke or struggling freelancer, or maybe you're just not as successful as you want to be. You are trying to figure out what are those things that other freelancers that are broke do, and how can I potentially stop them? Well, you're in the right place because I'm going to go over those. The first thing that I want to talk about, the things that every broke freelancer does, is they sign up for a marketplace. And when I'm talking about a marketplace, I'm talking about something like Fiverr, like freelancer.com, Upwork are common ones. There's also like niche specific ones like Sound Better in the audio community. There's like Top Towel like in the developer community. And it makes sense that people would want to sign up for these marketplaces because they're doing all the marketing for you, right? You can just go sign up and get clients. But the sad reality is that these marketplaces are taking the entire freelancing community and turning it from a service and a relationship focus into simply a transaction focus. So what happens inevitably when you go from a relationship and a service to simply a transaction is that it's a race to the bottom with pricing. So my hope and goal is for our freelancing community to stop putting our trust into these corporations who are just dumping millions of dollars into ads and learn the skills ourselves so that we can learn to feed ourselves and feed our own businesses and not have to rely on some sort of weird transactional marketplace. So the next thing that every single freelancer does is they look at their struggling business and they see that they're making just maybe a little bit, a tiny bit of money from this one service. And so maybe if they offer 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 other services, they're going to make 2 to 3 to 4 to 10 times as much money. I hate, no, I'm sorry. That's not the way it works. And the sad reality of that sort of situation is that it puts you right back in the transactionary zone that we were trying to get out of when we're getting off of Fiverr and Upwork and all these marketplace sites. When you're offering all these services, you're just like an online store at that point. And you're like, okay, do you want this service or do you want this service? Or do you want that service or do you want this service? And in pretty much every single situation that I can think of, quality over quantity will win every single time. When you go to the quantity approach, where you're just trying to do as many things as you can in anything that you do in freelancing, especially as a creative, that's usually a recipe for, if not just struggle, then absolute disaster. The other reason I don't like when people add multiple services to their business for this reason is because it's a scarcity-based decision. You're making this in a scarcity mindset. You're broke, you're just trying to find ways to make more money, and so you're adding more services, and it doesn't take into account the thing that truly matters, and that is the client. Are you doing the absolute most you can to serve that client? And in most cases, you offering 2, 3, 4, 10 services, that is doing the exact opposite of serving a client because there's no way on earth you're great at all 5, 10 of those things. There's just no way. And so by narrowing your focus and becoming a more of a specialist as a freelancer, that is a wonderful thing. The narrower you can go, the more you can help someone in a deep, deep rooted area, the more value you can provide and the more you'll be able to charge. And the less you'll need to go to those other services to fall back on. That doesn't mean you can't, by the way, that you can't ever offer more services. As you become the master of something as a specialist, you can eventually start to add on more things and cross-sell or upsell or whatever you want to do in that area. But at the very beginning, when you're struggling, if you haven't gotten that first win as a freelancer, then specializing is always going to be a better solution than going broad as a freelancer. So the next thing that every single broke freelancer does is they treat their business like a hobby. And this makes sense when you think about the way we all kind of got into this is we developed a skill, something we're passionate about, something that's really fun to do. And then we start finding ways to monetize that skill. And it's a natural progression. But the problem is when we continue to treat that like a hobby, when it is actually a business. And I say it all the time here at the Six Figure Creative, it takes more than just passion to become a six-figure creative or even a mid-5-figure creative. It takes more than passion. But I wrote something down because I wanted to get this exactly word for word. So I'm not even going to pretend to memorize this and I'm just going to read it. I said this: don't make the mistake of thinking this is all fun and games. The second you cross over from hobby to a business is the moment you are no longer able to ignore the boring, tedious, soul-sucking work. The role of the entrepreneur is to build a good enough business that you can afford to outsource most of that stuff. So what that all means in a nutshell is that we're stuck doing those boring, tedious things that we don't want to do. It's just part of being a business owner. It's better than a day job. I call that purgatory. It's better than being broke. I call that just being broke. It's that middle part that we don't really like to be a part of. It's the messy middle, but it's the stuff that's going to make you successful. Boring can be sexy if it earns you more money. And the point of earning that money doing the boring work you don't want to do is so that you can eventually hire help and get it off your plate by outsourcing it to an assistant or to some other freelancer, thus adding more money to the entire freelance ecosystem. So if you are treating your business like a hobby right now and you're struggling, the way to fix that is to stop treating it like a hobby. You have to take this more seriously. All right, so this is last on my list for this video, unless something else pops into my head. But this is the thing that every freelancer does, and these are actually, this kind of sums up everything so far, is that freelancers ignore the root cause of their problems. And when we're talking about the root cause of the problem of being broke, it's usually because of one of three things. And I want you to take this to heart because this is really important. This is something that's helped me a lot over the last year in my own businesses. You either lack the beliefs, you lack the skills, or you lack the character traits in order to be successful. So let's talk about lack of belief. When you look at your beliefs of yourself, and then you look at the beliefs of a six-figure freelancer, someone that's already successful, do you think there's some differences between what they believe about themselves and what you believe about yourself? The answer is likely yes. And those missing beliefs are the things that are holding you back from getting to that level. It's the same with lack of skills. Think about the skill set that a six-figure freelancer has. They likely have the skill set of client acquisition. They have the skill set of lead nurturing. They have the skill set of sales. They have the skill set of systems and automation and processes. And they have the skill set of building really good relationships, people skills. If you don't have all of those skill sets that a six-figure freelancer has, then it's going to be really, really hard for you to get to that point. And it's the same with character traits. What is missing between what a six-figure freelancer has and what you currently have as a broke freelancer? Do you think you have the same character traits? Things like consistency, things like following through. Do you have those character traits? Because if you don't, it's going to be very, very difficult to get to the place that you want to go. So kind of bring all of this back, final thoughts, things to kind of wrap this video up in a way that's not negative, because I don't want anyone to feel bad about watching this. I want you to feel encouraged to know that there is a path forward. But all of these things, all the ones that I mentioned so far, especially that last one, these are a recipe for a downward spiral. And that's because when we're broke and we're running a business like a broke person, then we make decisions that are bad. And that leads to outcomes that are bad. And that means that we start doubting ourselves more. So those beliefs that aren't there. We don't invest money into our skill set, which means because we don't have any. We don't build character traits because we're just beaten down and worn out all the time. So it's this downward spiral. So the way to get out of that is to first make sure you're not doing any of the things that I mentioned in this video. Second, make sure you're always improving your skill set, because that's what's going to help build your self-confidence. It's the thing that's going to help develop this character traits. As you start to actually see success, you'll want to pursue that success more. It's going to help you build those skills around client acquisition that I talked about. It's going to help you build the skills around the service you actually deliver so that you're more valuable. You'll be able to become a specialist. And finally, to get out of that spiral, you have to offer something that is genuinely valuable to people. And I've talked about this before in the past, but if what you offer as a freelancer, as a service provider, as a creative, if what you're offering isn't truly valuable, you'll never be able to charge much, if anything, for it. So the more valuable the service you offer is, the more you'll be able to charge, the more clients will be wanting to work with you, the more money you'll make, and the more money you'll be able to invest back into yourself. That's the cycle. That's the way to get out of that downward spiral and up into the wonderful ascension spiral. So if you're still watching this and you're struggling, it's likely because the thing that you're offering is just not that appealing to your ideal client. I want to offer you my guide on how to choose a service. Ideally, a transformational service. And this guide will walk you through how to actually pick who you're working with, what you're doing for them, what sort of value you're providing for them. And if you want that guide, just go to sixfigurecreative.com/transformation, and I'll email that right your way. So thank you so much for watching this video. And remember, it takes more than just passion to become a six-figure creative.